chalky this is. All right. But at the same time, this is going to really put up some good games for us, and we don't have to kind of be bored if somebody's getting blown out necessarily. Not saying that won't happen, but I guess as a fan, maybe this is what you want. Of course, everyone loves their Cinderella, but unless Cinderella's really as good as these people, you don't want them to get blown out. You want to see great games, and so I'm kind of pumped for that. I've never seen anything like it where all number 1 seeds, all number 2 seeds, all number 3 seeds make it, and then of course Auburn's a 5 seed and Oregon's a 12 seed. So just absolutely crazy, this Sweet 16. But it looks like the ACC won. They have 5 teams in this baby, with Virginia, Duke, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Florida State. And then you have the 4 SEC teams. The SEC is the second best winner, with your Kentuckys, your Auburn, your LSU, and I'm missing one here, Tennessee. So there you go. 4 teams in the SEC. We got 3 in the Big Ten. The usual suspects of Purdue. You got Michigan State and Michigan. John Beilein, amazing coach. Of course, Tom Izzo is probably the best tournament coach. It's my opinion anyway. Maybe we'll talk about the top 5 coaches next week. That'd be kind of an interesting topic. You got only one in the Big 12, Texas Tech, but a fierce opponent, especially on defense. You got Oregon, that's been the hottest team at the Pac-12. And just one team, one out of the West Coast Conference, which is, of course, Gonzaga, and one out of the American Athletic Conference, which is Houston. It's nice to see Houston there. A lot of people put money on Houston when they were 100-1, 50-1, so I'm kind of happy for those people. So there you have it. Pretty awesome lineup we have here. I want to also discuss our podcast schedule for this starting in April. We're going to be doing all the major horse races, in even the Santa Anita. We'll get you a little Santa Anita action before the Kentucky Derby comes on in May. But it's a nice little teaser to the Derby, isn't it? We're gonna do a podcast on that. But podcasts are mostly gonna be once a week, or sometimes once every 2 weeks. I do take vacations in the summer, and it's a little bit more dead. But we might be talking a little bit of your futures, and that's what it's going to be all about. We are 11-1-1 in college futures, which was amazing last year. College season win totals, college futures. We hit a few conference winners. And the NFL, of course, we're going to be talking about the draft and NFL conference futures and NFL season win totals, of course, just like last year. So real excited for that. We are now, without further ado, going to roll right into some of these games in the Sweet 16 with Mr. Tom Kolpien. All right, now I'm very excited to welcome back Mr. Tom Kolpien to handicap some of these Sweet 16 games with us. You can tweet Tom at Cover Profit. Tom, how the heck you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me back on. I'm doing great. Excited. We're getting ready for the Sweet 16. I'm doing well. Excited to be back on. Can't wait to break down some of these games with you.
What a bunch of awesome games, huh? I mean, Duke almost getting exited from UCF, and Dawkins, the old first best player for Coach K, was the coach for UCF. Great storyline there. And then you have, Tennessee almost, they're up by 20-some points, I think 25, and they almost get bounced by Iowa. It goes into overtime. Man, the tournament's been just amazing. And it's been a lot of fun to bet on. It's been kind of tough at first. I lost a couple real close ones, half-pointers, but then I hit a nice 4-teamer parlay on Sunday. That definitely helped. And I'll tell you right now, I was riding Oregon a little bit after that Wisconsin game, and and I was pretty happy about their result going into the Sweet 16. There was a nice payout on that one. So we're rolling here, man, and I'm real excited to get to talk to you here a little bit. So let's get right into this. I'm looking at the Thursday games, of course, first, and I'm going to go in order of how they're starting. Not really a huge home court advantage for any of these teams. I just wanted to, point out, I guess maybe Gonzaga's got one here, and this is because they're more on the West Coast, and they are playing a very, very tough Florida State at Honda Center. And obviously the Honda Center is located in California here, close, right there in Orange County, I believe, in Anaheim. And so you're going to get some West Coast there, but Gonzaga is all the way up in Washington, right? So we'll see what happens here. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think that the location of the game, in my opinion, it certainly favors Gonzaga. Look at where Florida State has to travel from. Southeast corner of the United States, going all the way across the country and over to the West Coast. I think the site itself and the travel implications definitely have to favor Gonzaga. I think there's a lot of reasons why you could back Florida State here with the spread, but I certainly think that I'm interested to see how both teams and their fan base travel here to California. But I certainly think the site favors Gonzaga in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll get started here. The spread's about 7.5, 7 or 7.5. The over/under is about 147. Gonzaga, a lot could be said about them. They're in the easy conference, though, right? I mean, and a lot of people saying it was a little bit too easy, and that's why you always see some money that fade Gonzaga, but. I'm more in the middle on that. The Zags, they were in an easy conference, but they still shot 52.3% away from home. They outscored their opponents by 13.6 points on average. But when we look at their 3 non-conference games that were big, the top 25 teams, they lost 2 of the 3. They beat Duke on the neutral court, but they did lose to Tennessee and North Carolina. Okay. So that's kind of key here. Florida State had a real man schedule, being in the ACC. Their schedule ranks 29th on KenPom. Okay. And they beat some non-conference opponents like LSU, Purdue, Florida. They average about 43.4% shooting on the road, outscore opponents by 4.6. Not super impressive, but you look at their only losses. Their only losses have been to Duke and North Carolina since that little hiccup they had in mid-January. Since mid-January, it was really only Duke and North Carolina. My biggest concern for the Seminoles is that Gonzaga is a faster-paced team, and that's the only profile that's beat Florida State. Really, it's the Duke and North Carolina. They're fast-paced, but on the other hand, Florida State is very tall. They're very deep. They run 10 players, okay? That's not what Gonzaga sees every day. You don't see guards 6'4", 6'5", 6'6". They have some big guards. They have a bunch of 6'10" guys down low, and so I think rotating their guys like Chris Kumaji and PJ Savoy, I think that helps because, Gonzaga is going to try to gas them like they always do. But it really helps them getting into foul trouble with how deep they are and running up and down the court. So the only top 25 teams the Zags have faced is, like I said, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Duke, and they only won 1. So I think the stingy Seminoles defense should be enough. Now, I know everyone says this is a revenge spot from last year because Florida State took out Gonzaga. That's stupid. Florida State is coming to win. Gonzaga doesn't matter what happened last year. They got to win this game. But 7.5 is a lot. So I one of my plays here, I'm taking Florida State plus those points and probably a little bit of sprinkle on the money line. Any thoughts on this one?
I completely agree with you. Earlier last week, as soon as the line opened up, it opened at 7. I jumped on it at 7, thinking I don't know if it's going to get sweeter. It's bounced up to 7.5. I
I'm not sure if it's been to 8 in some spots. I see 7.5 even today when I look and took some notes on today's matchup. I think that the biggest key is going to be how does Kumaji and Savoy, how do they match up with Hachimura and his height? And while Gonzaga runs, they definitely can score some points down low and they can control the glass, but they do it, like you mentioned before, in a different kind of strength of schedule. Florida State ranked 28th in the country on KenPom, 87 for Gonzaga. But I'll mention two quick things here. Look at what Florida State did in the conference tournament to Virginia. And while they're a very much slower-paced team, look at what happened to Gonzaga in their conference tournament against a very slow-paced team in St. Mary's. So I think this matchup in recency bias can allow people to put some money behind Florida State. I definitely like the number here. I think the storyline matches up. With respect to that revenge spot, I would say in the regular season, revenge is something that you have to weigh heavily. There's no point in testing motivation here in the Sweet 16. Both of these teams are going to come to play, and I can't imagine that the revenge spot outweighs motivation, which is even on both sides.
Completely agree, my man. Yeah, so that's a big spread for being so late. Florida State went all the way to the end of their conference tournament, only lost to Duke, North Carolina. I wouldn't be shocked if Gonzaga, won by over that. Florida State does have a choking syndrome, but I think the value is definitely with the points. Let's move on to Purdue versus Tennessee. Tennessee's laying a point. Over under is at 146.5. And I'm going to mention that 62% of the bets are on Tennessee, but 79% of the money is on Tennessee. I think the spread might have moved up a little bit. And the over-under, it's exactly 67% of the bets are on the over and 67% of the percent of the money is on the over. So pretty big matchup here. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, what I'm surprised about is that there's a slightly bigger uptick in the amount of money that's on Tennessee here, but the line really hasn't moved all that much from what I can gather. I'm on Tennessee here. I think Purdue is such a Carson Edwards reliant team. They've demonstrated in the past that if teams can contest shots with him, make things difficult for him to be able to run the offense. I saw a statistic, I think, back in the Big Ten tournament that he represents just over 60% of the offensive field goal attempts for their entire team. And you have to imagine that Rick Barnes is going to prepare for that. Tennessee is a battle-tested team. Look at some of the teams in which they have played in the past and earlier on in the year that they've been able to beat. I feel like they've perhaps had some of their bad losses. I think, in fact, the site here favors Tennessee. It's close, from Tennessee to Kentucky. I don't know that they're going to have trouble traveling. That being said, people could argue that Purdue would have the same situation. But I think there are a couple different factors that weigh heavily into Tennessee's favor. I have this power lined as Tennessee minus 3.5 here. I think you either have to put your money on Tennessee or you have to just sit back and grab some popcorn and watch this one.
Yeah, this should be a great game, right? And you wonder what happened to Admiral Schofield. It sits himself out at the end, and Tennessee wins anyway. He says he put his trust into my guy. That's kind of like one of those, shut your eyes and fall backwards, and if your buddy catches you type deal. It's like, well, man, you sure as hell put a lot of faith into him. It's almost like falling off a mountain right there because you could have been bounced out of the tournament. I thought that was strange. Yeah, both of these teams are less than 250 miles away from Louisville. 50-50 fan split. Purdue has been a bad tournament team. Matt Painter's taken a lot of crap for it. It's just, but this year definitely does look more promising. I do have a future on Purdue, so I'm not super excited to be putting some money on them. But what I do like about Purdue is they also have an NBA player. They have Carson Edwards. He takes most of their shots, but they also have some serious height down low. Purdue is tall down low. They rebound the ball well. They rank 18th in offensive rebounds. The big problem that I have against Purdue is that they supposedly shoot bad on the road. Okay? They shoot only 41.2% on the road, outscoring their opponents by only 0.6 points.